Blog Talk Radio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Laurie Smith on Blog Talk Radio. Good morning. It is Friday morning, 6 o'clock here in the morning, Calgary, Alberta, September the 10th. And this is One Child Abuse Survivor to Another. We're on for 30 minutes. It's a live internet streaming radio broadcast from blogtalkradio.com. Chat room is open, and everybody's just welcome to hang out. We're talking about inner child, and we've been looking at this for all this week and some last week, and I've been finding it very helpful myself. I popped the link in the chat room there for anyone, but I'll give that to you now. And that link is from a website that was created by Hope for Us. And Hope for Us, Hope for Us, she is a survivor. She has read John Bradshaw's books, and Healing the Shame That Binds You, and also Homecoming, the Homecoming book that he wrote. And she created these web pages to go with, to sort of talk about her story, and also to talk about what John Bradshaw was writing in his book. So I find it quite helpful myself, as I've never really done any looking around at inner child or inner children, right? So it's from www.hopeforsurvivors.com, and that's hope, the number 4 survivors.com /inner school age.html. That's what we're looking at this morning, our inner school age child. So yeah, thanks very much everybody for tuning in. I appreciate it. And I'm not a professional counselor or therapist. I don't hold any certificates in those areas. I'm just a private citizen who pays to do my own blog talk shows because I'm a survivor, and I just, there are voices out there, but I just wanted to be one more voice, right? Because it's not talked about, the issues of adult survivor issues and what happens to children after they grow up and turn in, make it to their adulthood if they do. The issues that surround what they have to go through to try to heal from the damage that was done in their childhood. It's just not talked about that often in the mainstream society, and we all have to start talking about this. We see the headlines rolling in. I'm the Canada Regional Director for Dreamcatchers for Abused Children, and we're looking at this stuff every day, and I'm a survivor, so I've been living it every day. And, it's, we see these headlines, and we know it's happening. Child abuse is occurring all over the world and all over North America. And, we see these headlines, and whether the children have been killed or murdered at the hands of their parents, or they end up in the hospital due to abuse-related injuries, or they're just removed from the home, and then we don't hear anything else about it. There's no talk about prevention. There's no talk about, there might be in some small newspaper in some small town somewhere, but it's not mainstream. It's not going all the way across, nationwide, Canada, the United States, right? We don't hear a whole lot about survivor issues. Sometimes people talk about PTSD and whatnot, but no one's really talking about the causes behind it. And I know that there's a lot of survivors out there, and I know this because I study I know the facts, I know the stats, right? And so, I'm just a private citizen who pays to do this show to bring out information to people, and as well as I'm on my healing journey as well. And so I find this stuff very interesting, and it does help me to sort of make sense of what's going on inside, as far as my emotions go and my feelings go. I'm quite a ways through my healing journey. So you have to be, aware of what you're listening to when you listen to shows like this, because, especially if you're a survivor of child abuse, because the topics can trigger, and any topic like this can trigger, a survivor of child abuse, and you don't want to go backward in your healing. You want to be able to be comfortable and move at your own pace, slowly and at your own pace, right? So if you think the show might bother you, just turn it off. It's not going to hurt my feelings at all. And if you're a young person under the age of 18, I just ask that you have a parent or guardian, someone, who you trust, to listen to the show with you. Just to make sure if it's something you should be listening to. I don't know how young the people are who are listening, so I just ask that people under the age of 18 have permission to listen to my show. So I'm all about protecting children, and that's what I do. So you have to keep yourself safe, and you have to have a good idea of what you're doing in chat rooms and what you're doing online, because there's a whole lot of sick people out there who are looking to get a hold of children. The FBI have a great website on how to keep yourself safe when you're online, and they have good information for young people and children and parents, right, on internet safety. There's all kinds of good websites out there on how to keep yourself safe when you're online. So make sure you check all that out. And we'll get right into this topic here this morning. Affirm your inner school-age child, and this is from www.hopeforsurvivors.com. And yesterday we were looking at the inner toddler self. Now today I want to look at the inner preschool self. Now this one I want to look at is the inner school-age child. And it says, like your preschool days, you probably remember much from your school days. I'm just reading right from the page here. However, if like me you suffered from heinous abuse during this time, you may have incomplete memories. As a means of survival, our awesome brains will often block memories that are too horrific for us to remember, or until a time that we are strong enough to remember. And so she writes here, if this has happened to you, but you feel strongly that you were neglected or abused during your school-age years, based on witnessing others in your family being abused or from overhearing retold stories of abuse in your family, John Bradshaw supplies an index of suspicion beginning on page 140 of his Homecoming book. So in his book there, a person, if they wanted to, can take this little test, an index of suspicion, to see if you just to help you to come to some terms whether or not you did experience some abuse as a youngster. I haven't read John Bradshaw's books, and I'm going to. I'd like to get a hold of them. As soon as I get some money, I'm going to purchase his books, and they just seem to be very, like they'd be very helpful for somebody, like myself, who's a survivor. So I'll do that eventually when I get some extra money. She's written here, just as in earlier developmental stages, your inner school-age child will have internalized unmet needs from that period of your childhood. It is an important part of recovery to acknowledge and affirm those needs now as an adult. And she says here, like my inner preschooler, affirming my inner school-age child was much more emotional for me than the first two stages. So she says, please be in a place where you feel safe, strong, and rested before doing the affirmations for your school-age inner child. And she says, have some Kleenex handy before you begin. So yeah, she's a survivor, and her story is available on these pages here. So if you go to www.hopeforsurvivors.com, you can see her stories there. It talks about her and what she's doing and what she plans on doing in the future. So if you want to take a look at that, it's quite interesting. And it's nice that she's done these pages, and she does tell a little bit about her story throughout the stuff that she's writing. And so it's just, she's just another survivor, and, I'm so glad to see what she's doing, trying to help people out, and as well as helping herself, right? So affirmations, this is what this is all about, this inner child stuff that we've been looking at all week. It's affirmations for our infant self, our inner toddler self, our inner preschool age self, and then our inner school age self, right? So these are affirmations that we can do, to try to help our inner child. If we're feeling that our inner child just hasn't had any nurturing or any care, which is where I was about 3.5 years ago, almost 4 years ago now. I realized I had a raging inner child within me for many years, and I just didn't know that I was supposed to get in touch with this inner child, and I didn't know, that I could actually do any real comforting for her. Right? She was just there. And I knew she was there because I would always feel that this inner young person was so angry from the abuse that I suffered as a child, right? And just the whole destruction of my family, right? It was hard to take, but I just kept pushing it down inside, and never dealt with it really, never dealt with it healthy. It was always destructive stuff that I was doing, and until I decided to get serious on my healing journey, and that was about 3.5, almost 4 years ago now. Excuse me. So my voice is terrible this morning, but I just woke up. So it says, these affirmations are quite important, right? I was talking about that all week, actually. That once I started on my healing journey, I actually did start doing some positive affirmations and really telling myself stuff that I needed to hear a long, long time ago, and I knew I was not going to hear it from anybody in my life. I don't have a whole lot of support. I have my sweetheart is very supportive, and he's a good man, and we don't live together. He's terminally ill, and sadly enough, he was diagnosed almost 10 years ago. But he's a good man, and he loves me, but he doesn't know how to nurture that small child that I was, right? That would have had to been a parent, a parental figure, right? And so I had to become my own nurturing parent, basically. And I knew this when I started working at it, because I thought that little child inside of me that needed to hear all that stuff from my parents was never going to hear it from my parents. And so I thought, I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to have to become the voice of of a loving mother to myself and a voice of a caring father to myself, right? And so I started doing these things, these positive affirmation type things, just on my own, and it really did help because I started to believe what I was saying. I was like, okay, I believe it. I did not deserve that abuse. I did not deserve to be treated that way. I was a good kid, and this pain and anger and anguish and despair that I'm feeling was not even my fault. It was put on me by two people who could not cope, and so I started to really work through this, and it took me a long time, and like almost 4 years later, I'm sitting here today in a much better place. I'm so happy to be able to say that, and so whatever works for you, you have to get help, right? It's just so important. So many times survivors because of the shame surrounding it, they just will not reach out, and they just, because of the pain surrounding it, they don't want to acknowledge it, quite often living in denial, and there's many reasons for it. My two siblings are living in denial right now, and they, as much as they'll acknowledge that the family was just, the stuff that was going on was absolutely crazy, they will not acknowledge the pain that it caused them, because that would mean that they would have to look at it, and they don't want to look at it, So that's where we sort of have to it's not like we're breaking off ties, but the thing is my brother hasn't talked to me for 3 years. He hates what I'm doing, and he doesn't like the fact that I'm working to stop child abuse. He thinks it's just ridiculous, and because he's in denial, and he's the oldest, and he just, he's very, stubborn, and so he's not talking to me. My sister is somewhat supportive, but she's not on the healing journey with me, so we're sort of separating as far as that goes. We're still a very dysfunctional family. So there's no real support there. So that's why, these positive affirmations and stuff, if you don't have a lot of support, is very important to do for yourself, right? And get some help. Just make sure you reach out and get some help. Excuse me. So some of the things they say here that John Bradshaw, these probably come right out of his book. It says, in addition to the affirmations that all inner children need to hear, like, I'm glad you're here, I love you just the way you are, and I will never leave you. Your inner school-age child needs to hear affirmations that are specific to this fourth stage of child development. So they've listed them off here, and it says, little Lori, I could just call myself my own name, but if you have another name for your inner child, that's fine, because she said that quite often, once we get in touch with our inner children, you can see on these web pages here that sometimes there's more than one child. There might be more inner children. It's not the same as DID, dissociative disorder. It's not the same as, where inner children and dissociative disorder is a completely different thing. The inner child is more like, my inner child, I can kind of picture her, and she's right around the age of 6, 7 years old. And I can sort of picture her. That's about the time in my life when I was actually, most of the abuse actually occurred after that. But the fact of the matter is there had never been any real love or care before that. And so that little 6, 7-year-old girl within me was very raging, upset, and mad because of all the stuff that happened to her and that nobody cared, And so I think after that I sort of shut down and stopped caring, right? But before that, when I was 6 or 7 years old, I was looking for, my mom's love and looking for nurturing and care. It wasn't there. And so she was just raging and just very angry and sad, And then after that, probably my school-age self and my adolescent self just shut down, basically, and I just didn't care. I was like, well, if you want to kill me, go ahead and kill me, whatever. I'm dead anyway. So, I detail all that in my book if anybody's interested in getting a copy. A Life of Death, The Redemption, that's my story, and Dreamcatchers for Abused Children saw it. It was a blog. It was called Not So Fond Memories Growing Up in an Abusive Home. And I started writing this blog last October after work. I'd just come home, write chapters, post it online, and just direct people to it. I wanted people to see my story. I didn't want to go to my grave with this information. And I really wanted to be a voice for my brothers, my two brothers, who one committed suicide at the age of 33, and that was quite a few years ago. And another one of my brothers died of a drug overdose at the age of 43, and that was quite a few years ago as well. But they went to their graves in shame and silence. Nobody really knew what had happened to them as children. Nobody knew what kind of home they lived in that would cause them to actually kill themselves. And I thought, man, I am not going to the grave with this. The world needs to know this. My brothers, I'm a voice for my brothers, and I'm happy to be. Now, there's 7 siblings, and I only dedicated the book to those 2 brothers because the rest of my siblings all disowned my brothers and said it was their fault, and living in this dysfunctional, codependent garbage life, that because my parents had created this for us, right? So, I thought, no, my two brothers deserved a whole lot better than that, and so I dedicated the book to them. And all the proceeds are going to Dreamcatchers for Abused Children. So anybody who picks up a copy, just know that money is going to be used to spread, to promote awareness, education, and prevention of child abuse. I didn't want the money for that book, and that book meant a whole lot more to me than money. And it was paid for with blood and tears and sorrow, grief, and sadness. But I didn't want the money to pay my rent. I thought, no, forget that. That money needs to go to help stop child abuse, right? So if you do pick up a copy, just know that it's going to hopefully, to make a difference, and stop this mess, right? So, yeah, it's very important. This is the thing. I did list about, I did talk a little bit about that. The fact that what I had missed out on, I had sort of shut down, as a young person. And just thought that my mom should just go ahead and kill me, or my dad should just kill me because I was already dead. That's how I felt, right? So I sort of shut down at that point. So, but I'm sure I have inner children that I need to work through there as well. But they're probably so hidden away and just don't. So I don't know. I don't see them in there, but I just see that little girl who was 6 or 7 years old in my own mind's eye of who's inside of me as this young person, right? And so we can talk to ourselves. We can talk to that inner child and try to nurture our inner child, right? And so that's what these web pages are all about. So then she says here, these affirmations are, you can be who you are at school, you can stand up for yourself, and I will support you. And that's what they say, you can tell yourself. Another one is, it's okay to learn to do things your way. And it's okay to think about things and try them out before making them your own. Here's another one. You can trust your own judgments. You need only take the consequences of your choices. Says most abused children believe that the abuse they suffer is their fault, and it's important to let our inner children or child know that the abuse was not their fault and that they are only responsible for their choices. So deciding to abuse us was a choice that our abusers made, not us, and that's a fact, and I'm so glad that I know this and understand this. So many people don't, sadly, they've just been so warped and so manipulated and so abused that they take on the abuse as their fault, and so many times children do, because if your parents tell you, oh, it's your fault, this is this wouldn't happen if you were a good boy or a good girl, or the whole reason the family fell apart was because of you. Now I heard this stuff, but I didn't believe it, because I was like, no way, this is not my fault, I'm a good kid. I always kind of tried to stay sane in that family, you know what I mean, and try to realize that it wasn't my fault. I knew whose fault it was, right? I mean, I was trying to do my best in that home to be a good kid and to love my parents, even though the love was not reciprocated, right? So I didn't take that on as being my fault. I did, however, believe a lot of stuff that they said, which was I was worthless, useless, stupid, and stuff like that, because that was just beaten into me, right? From day one. I mean, that's what I heard, that's what I knew, right? So I just believed it whenever I'd get a bad grade at school or something. It's not like my parents would have cared whether I was doing well at school or not. It's just for me personally inside, I'd be like, I must be stupid. My mom had always been calling me worthless and stupid, and I'd never amount to anything and all this, right? So in the back of my mind, I'd be like, well, maybe I am, and I never really tried that hard at school, and I was always on drugs and high most of the time, or alcohol or whatever. So I did show up to school, right? But I wasn't necessarily all there. So that's the thing. It's hard on kids, and we have to change that for ourselves, and we have to undo what was done and try to repair some of that damage. And I think that's why I'm here today, because I'm very much interested in trying whatever works, whatever works, whether it's a counselor or therapist. I don't have a counselor or therapist. I don't have any benefits or any money right now to get one, but eventually, when I do, I'm going to go see a counselor, and just to talk to someone a little bit about this stuff, and whether I need one or not, I'm still going to go. You know what I mean? Because I think I should. And I've talked to some counselors, actually, quite a few counselors, just doing these blog talk shows, and it's been very nice to talk to them and very helpful. And so I know that I can get help, and that's the biggest thing, right? So many survivors just don't trust people enough to open up, and I decided, 3-4 years ago, I said, man, I want people to trust me. So I'm going to have to I'm going to have to learn to trust at the age of 41. I mean, this is ridiculous, but you know, I trusted very few people, and I used to, you know, if a friend of mine, if I really trusted somebody, you know, it'd have to be somebody really special to me, because most people I just did not trust. I couldn't trust anyone, right? So I started to learn how to try to change that. You know, not everybody's motives are out to hurt me. Not everybody's, you know, a bad person, right? And I grew up thinking that, and so, you know, I didn't trust anybody all the way through my young years. I sort of learned how to trust people later in my 20s and 30s, just because I kind of had to. But, you know, later on in life, you know, you still have these trust issues, right? So I would never think, oh, I'll go get help, or I'll go see a counselor or a therapist, because they'll just get my information and use it against me or something, or you know, make me feel worse than I already do, right? So this is what was always in the back of my mind, right? And I, without realizing these people care, and that, you know, if we find a counselor or therapist that's just not working for us, we can just get a different one. You know what I mean? We can just move on to a different one that we can relate to, that relates to us, right? That can help us out. So this is the thing, right? We can get help. There's lots of good help out there. What I did was join an adult support group for child abuse survivors, right? Online support, and I really like that because, you know, then I can do this. If I get off work or whatever, and I don't want to leave the house, I can just get online, and if I'm having a tough day, you know, you can talk to people, and these are people, survivors like ourselves, who are on their healing journey, right? So they want everybody to heal with them, so they're quite often very supportive. It's good to have that validation, somebody to talk to who understands, you know, what point in your life you're at and how hard it is for survivors, right? That's just the whole issue. Like, if you've been there, then you know. Then you'd know firsthand how hard it is. And we're all in different stages, and we're all in different points in our life, and different healings, you know, journeys, we live through different experiences, right? But it's the whole idea that you know that whole betrayal, and you know the whole anguish that a child feels being abused, you know, so we share that commonality, right? So I found it very helpful to talk to survivors, you know, who've been there, and they understand how hard it is, and how much it hurts, you know, and how much it still hurts so many years later, you know. And then, of course, they're so helpful, because they're like, you can do it, man. We're going to hold on to your hands, and, you know, we're going to make it, right? And they just pull you along with them, and I just love that, because that's what we need. We need support, and we need friends. We need honest, true people who are going to be there for us, right? So important. So if you don't have anybody in your own family who can be there for you, which I didn't have anyone in my own family that could actually do this for me, I had to reach out, right? So I'm so glad I reached out. I'm so thankful, because I tell you, I don't know, I'd probably still be sitting around feeling the same way I was for 41 years, you know, not getting anywhere in my healing journey, and just feeling like, is life worth it? I don't know. You know, I was in such a dark place for most of my life that you know, the light came on. Like, I mean, it was the difference between night and day, right? So this is what I'm here to, I just want to encourage people to reach out, you know, no matter how you choose to do it, reach out to somebody. And because people won't often reach in, they just can't, you know, even if they know that your situation and that you had been abused or whatever, if they don't have it with what the necessary stuff within them to help you, you know, to help you come along through it, then, you know, you need to keep reaching out until you find someone that grabs your hand and says, come on, let's go. We're doing this. We're going to heal. We're going to move forward. You know, we got to find that support and find that help, right, wherever it is, instead of just suffering along in silence, which is what I did for many, many years. So that's the thing. It's sad, right? We do deserve to have a good life, and we do deserve to feel good about ourselves. And, you know, it took me a while to get through all that, but it's, you know, almost 4 years later, and I'm sitting here and I do feel a whole lot better about myself now than I did even 4 years ago, right? So, and about life. You know, I feel like because I've gotten proactive on my own healing journey and taken responsibility for my own healing, you know, it gave me something to focus on. You know, I thought, hey, this is great. I'm in charge of my own healing. You know, I always thought somebody else should be trying. I always wish someone else could take away my pain. That was some big one. I used to always be sitting around saying, why cannot, especially when I was having a depressed state, like almost like my mom was diagnosed manic depressive, and my dad was diagnosed borderline schizophrenic as well as borderline personality disorder. The two of them were abused as children, so they passed it off on us, right? And so, you know, I was always sitting around kind of, You know, I'd be able to go through periods of time fine, and then all of a sudden I'd be depressed or something. A date would roll around on the calendar and it would bum me out or something. Something would trigger me, right? I was often triggered and had lots of flashbacks and stuff. I still have lots of flashbacks, but they don't bother me like they used to. But, you know, sitting around in this funk, in this depression, and sometimes it would take me a long time to get out of it. And I'd be sitting there just thinking, you know, I wish someone could take away this pain. Why can no one take this away, right? That was the main thought that was in my head. And of course, it wouldn't go anywhere, and I'd just be sitting there in my own pity party, right? Until I'd pull myself out of it again, and then things would be fine for a while, right? And I just did this over and over again for 30 cognitive years. You know, that's a long time. So, you know, having friends throughout my lifetime that I just thought should be able to take away my pain, and they couldn't. And even though many of them knew my story and knew some of them had witnessed it as young people, right? But they just couldn't do it. So I realized at the age of 41, I was sitting on the couch, you know, thinking I should end my life or self-injure or something. I just needed something. I needed to be able to let all this stuff come out, you know. I sat there and I thought, oh man, it's going to have to be me. This realization came over me. I don't know. I must have just reached a point in my life where I just realized that it was going to have to be me to do this. I was going to have to be the one to nurture myself, to care about myself, to love myself, you know, to help myself. And I thought, oh my God, I'm the one that's going to have to do this. I can't ask somebody else to take away my pain. They can't do it. Even if they wanted to, they couldn't do it. So I was putting a lot of pressure on my friends, you know. And so yeah, no, I thought, you know, why am I doing this? No one's going to care if I self-injure. No one's going to care if I kill myself. My family might shed a few tears, the 3 or 4 remaining people that are left in it. And, you know, the rest of them don't care. Nobody cared that my brother killed himself. I mean, they all cried a little bit, went to his funeral. That was about it. You know, it was horrific. And no one really, it didn't matter that much that my other brother died of a drug overdose. He'd been doing drugs since he was like 10 years old. And, you know, when people were expecting him to be gone a lot sooner than he did go. So when he finally did go, it was kind of like, well, he finally took too many pills. There we go. Now that's pathetic, you know. I was heartbroken over it. The rest of my family just figured it was their fault. Too bad, you know. And I'm sitting there just thinking, you heartless buggers, you know. But of course, they grew up abused as well as I did, and they grew up with the same parents I did. So we're all, you know, very dysfunctional and very screwed up. So, I mean, I was sitting around thinking, who's going to care if I kill myself? No one. Who's going to care if I hurt myself? No one. So I'd be doing this for nothing. And I'd be hurting myself for no reason because I've already experienced enough pain in my lifetime. Why would I want to hurt myself? I started to think, you know, for the first time at the age of 41, I thought, man, why am I doing this? You know, I deserve so much better. I didn't deserve that garbage, and I certainly didn't deserve all that abuse that I took from both parents and one brother. And I thought, man, you know, it's going to be up to me. I'm going to have to be the one to make the first step here. I'm going to have to be the one to nurture myself and to love myself and reparent myself and to become my own nurturing, loving parent, basically, because I didn't get it when I was a child. I certainly didn't. So that's what we have to do. We have to be very much our own promoter of wellness, right? If you have to be your very best advocate. And so I started to realize this, and I was like, I have to be the one person that's gonna care enough to get myself some help. It's gonna have to be me, because nobody else is gonna do it. And I was like, oh, thank God I realized that, because I thought I would never ever self-injure. I would never ever attempt to end my life, right? So this is the thing, right? We have to do this ourselves. We are very much responsible for our adult lives. And we're not responsible for what happened to us as children, that's for sure. And that's why it's so important to realize that it was not your fault. It was not my fault, and we didn't deserve it. We sure did not. And that we can nurture, we can learn to love ourselves and to learn to love this life and to learn to love other people, trust ourselves, you know, and just move on in our healing, right? Well, we have about a minute left, so you can go ahead and check out these affirmations here on this page. We'll look at the rest of this tomorrow, Monday. And on Monday, tonight, check out Dreamcatchers Talk Radio, www.blogtalkradio.com/Dreamcatchers. I'll be on there tonight with Donna Shear at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time and for an hour. And have yourselves a really good day, everybody. You know, just keep reaching out. If you need something, get a hold of me. I'll be on Facebook, or you can send me a message here on Blog Talk Radio or whatever. But just make sure you take care of yourselves and get some help, you know. You don't deserve to suffer. We were not put here to suffer. And, I mean, we don't deserve to be in this pain and anguish, you know. So make sure you do reach out, even if it is to call a crisis line. Phone someone. Get a hold of someone. You know what I mean? And get some help, right? It's so important. You do deserve better. You know, you do count, you do matter. I count, I matter. And so, you know, therefore I'm going to do it. And I hope that you'll join me on this journey and stay with us and do what you can, you know, to help yourself to get through this, right? And to get some help, right? So important. Take care, everybody. I'll keep you in my heart until next time. We'll be on next week. You can check my show page and have yourselves a really nice weekend, everybody. Take good care of yourselves. Talk to you soon.